word long, spelt with many G's and many N's. So let's move on to the next set of speakers. I've also been given constructive feedback that I'm not speaking into the mic, and I blame it entirely on Harish. So we're going to have two different mics at two different levels now. The next speaker is Mr. Steve Correa. Mr. Correa is following a 30-plus year career as a corporate executive, including CHR roles at Diageo and Jio, a Reliance company. Steve is pursuing his encore career as an executive coach and HR consultant. Mr. Correa. And I'll introduce the panelists one by one. Preeti Damello heads Leadership Development and Diversity at Tata Consultancy Services. Dr. Vishal Shah is the Vice President of Leadership Development at Wipro. Anita Gupta is the co-founder and managing partner of MyPersona. And Sujit Soma Sundar is the founder of Starting Line Sports, a test cricketer, a cricket coach, and a leadership coach.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm very excited that in this forum today we have almost a large number of people who are coaches and who support leaders, who at one point of time have been perhaps leaders in organizations and have themselves been coached and have sponsored coaching and are now coaching leaders from outside in. And then there are others who are leaders who, amongst many things, also have used coaching in being able to build the leadership. So unlike any other session that has gone by, I'd like you all not to take away and move away from your iPhones and smartphones, but actually use them in the session and continue to rattle away some couple of questions as you see whatever emerges with this lively panel that we have today. If time permitting and I'm able to riffle through all your questions, I'll try and plonk that in at the right time. But do send me your questions short, and we'll start with that. In the stage today is four very interesting people that I have met prior to on the phone and had a lovely conversation. There's Vishal, who is from corporate at Wipro, sponsors, coaching, does a lot of executive coaching himself. There's Sujit, a bit of a coach, but not the normal corporate coach. He's actually a sports coach, was a cricketer once. There's Preeti, who's done lots of stuff at TCS, interventions and so on, and of course, has a very deep view about coaching and has blended many things as she tries to strike the leadership quotient at TCS, a large organization. And of course, the last but not the least, Anita, who has come from the other side, corporate world, from a line function, and has now, apart from doing a lot of interesting treks to various mountains, has also is now being seen as helping others climb the leadership mountain. Delighted to have you guys here. And audience, please do participate. Keep your smartphone right there visible on the table, okay? Shall we start? Yes? Yes. Yeah, okay, go. Okay, so the first question, let's get some definitions out of the way, because we've all had this very interesting understanding of what coaching is. So anyone, to begin with, what is your definition of coaching?
Yeah, so since you spoke of trekking, I'd like just to say that for me, it's a very exciting journey, because with each person that you coach, you're actually walking and helping them climb their chosen peak. And what's also fantastic is that one gets to help them rediscover strengths. I think there was a lot of talk about managers and leaders. And to me, that really rang a bell because it's not only the fact that we have the strengths, we also tend to forget them in the journey of the daily grind. So it's about helping them rediscover their strengths and finding new wings, because that's how you're going to get to be able to lead to change.
Thank you. And Preeti, would you just throw in definition in a few words? We just want to get the words out.
I would say changing systems, uh, transforming individuals, connecting the one to the many, looking at helping people scope out their own lives.
Fabulous. And the next time, bring the mic a little closer, because some people are saying that they can't hear you, Preeti. What about you, Sujit? What's coaching?
So to empower and enable people to find access or get access to their own, potential, and to help them discover and perform to the ability that they aspire to. So just to empower and enable them.
Vishal?
I would say it's one of the more effective approaches that we have to help people discover themselves and develop as leaders. That was.
So one of the most interesting things about coaching is that everyone who's coaching or being coached have their own definition of what it is. But somewhere we've got some sense of what coaching is and what coaching is not. How do you contrast coaching to other interventions such as mentoring, counseling, leadership program, sending them up to an institute, an education forum? How is coaching distinctive to other forms of intervention for leadership? Anyone?
Well, it's potentially the only medium that allows for inner work in a concentrated period of time, which is when you can actually sit down for 60 to 120 minutes and focus on what's going on within you. Some bit of that is done in therapy, but here we're talking about inner work leading to future action. So there's a critical difference. It allows for focus on self.
For me, it works, leadership development programs with the training work to an extent. But coaching helps, with the empathy and the rigor, you actually help in the transformation. You're part of that journey, and you can help see the visible difference. And I think the impact that makes is what coaching really brings to the table.
The men here?
Yeah. So see, coaching and mentoring, counseling, the common thing is that we need to be with the person, with the coachee or the mentee. But I think there is a small difference most of the times where the mentee or the person who seeks counseling has a choice in who he or she opts as a mentor or as a counselor. But many times a coach is in an environment where the coach is entrusted upon the coachee. A small difference, but most of the times it is like that. So that's when, and then as a coach, you need to, of course, to add on to what the ladies have already mentioned, that you got to be, as a part of the journey, more hands-on. A coach has to be more hands-on. He has to start working immediately and produce results immediately. That's what I mean.
Fabulous. Vishal, you want to say something?
So firstly, coaching can be and is often combined with other developmental methods. And in my experience, it's most often confused with mentoring. But really, I think the way it's different is really it asks the person who's getting coached to discover their own solutions and approaches. I think that's the fundamental difference.
And there are lots of definitions of coaching, but I think Cindy, I learned from her that the best definition for me is really coaching is a reflective space where the coach acts as the container to what is moving within the client. And to me, it really fundamentally feels like the spirit of what coaching does. We're going to go into a combination of what some of the audience is asking at this point of time, which is when you look at the world of coaching, you've got four lenses. One of them being the coachee himself, the client who's the sponsor for coaching, and you've got the line manager who can be a coach or an external coach, and then you've got the context of the organization. And I think we need to look at some of those from each of those lenses. But let me first start with the coachee lens. How do you know when the coachee is ready for coaching? How do you ready him for coaching? Anyone?
Well, I'm going to twist that a little bit, just to give you my organizational context as well. We look at coaching within TCS as not from a point of readiness, but from a point of aspiration, to say what is it that we aspire for our leaders to be. And which is to say that when you're looking at a certain section of the organization, some of them already might be there. But if we want to step up our game, we want people to be more expansive in their thinking. We want people to be able to stretch their capacity to include and engage and connect. We bring in a coaching intervention. We do blend it, to Vishal's point, blend it with leadership interventions. However, we are very focused on keeping coaching as a standalone in most cases, because it allows for a no-pressure environment. It allows for people to work on themselves without the rigor of sitting for 8-9 hours in a classroom session.
Thanks, Preeti. Anyone else wants to build to this?
Yeah, so the question was, when do you know when the coachee is ready for coaching? Was that the question? Yeah. So, well, you really don't know as long as you're ready to be a coach. I mean, you've got to listen for that. Many times you don't get coaches who are really looking for, or they're not a request for coaching. And that's where the challenge is. I think the next questions are there. So when are they ready? When you're ready to be able to accept however the coachee is. And when you're okay about that, then they are ready. I think otherwise they're not. Because then you have your agenda and it's not something that they want. So I think it's more turned inwards. Rather than looking at, are they ready? I think as a coach, we got to keep looking at, am I ready to accept whatever is in front of you?
So one element is that, sponsoring organizations like TCS, Wipro, they would put hypos, others through coaching processes because they're building leaders. And there might be organizations where somebody is being sent to a coach because he perceives that, I'm to be fixed or there's something wrong. Anita, Vishal.
I think that's happened quite a few times. And it works sometimes when you're able to connect with the person. I think, as you said, are you ready to accept the person? But the moment of truth is when you have connected. And when that happens, you may actually find a change. However, when the organization is not supportive, I mean, there have been times when I think that doesn't work. The coach is willing to change, but the organization is not supportive. So it's both ways. Either they tell you fix him or her, or they say the person is ready, but the organization is not supportive.
Okay.
So, if an organization has a history with, coaching, then it's a different thing. But otherwise, many times, people do perceive that, they're being sent in to get fixed, which is where I think the role of the organization, more than the external coach, is far more prominent in the way it's positioned to the coachee. I think that's where.
So there seems to be a trend where, while coaching is on the rise, there are internal coaches at the full time or double hatting as coaches and doing coaching with employees in the organization. Then there are external coaches who are invited to the party to coach from outside. What's the trade-off? Having internal coaches versus external coaches. What's the difference?
Well, we've got more than a handful of our coaches sitting in the audience. All of them are external. And we, as an organization, at this point of time, choose to work with external coaches, primarily because we believe that that's a wonderful way to maintain confidentiality, put no pressure on the leader, provide for more free-flowing, open conversations. It's a dynamic system, and we can't make too many promises. If we can put an external coach in place, the rest of it, I think, has more chances of succeeding.
Okay, thanks, Preeti. Vishal, you want to?
So we have a mix of internal and external coaches, and we've defined it as different for different groups. So there are groups which work with internal coaches, and there are groups which work with external coaches. Actually, for us, confidentiality doesn't really come up as a big issue. If you have internal coaches who are certified, trained, and so we've seen that they are able to establish that reasonably well. I think the whole trade-off is between understanding of the context versus objectivity. Really, that's where the question is.
A great coach who's a PCC is coaching inside the organization, but he also exercises judgment in talent, discussions, boards, etc. So he could be creditable, competent, but he may not be able to evoke trust.
You know, we've sort
I'm
of...
provoking you, Preeti. Is that true?
I
Not
got
true?
that. I bit the bait. We've got, we started an intervention called the supervision program. And what we really do there is take all our certified internal coaches and put them into a supervision intervention where they coach as an external coach would. However, under supervision so that we can make sure that any kind of work that needs to be done in the process of abandoning judgment, of not projecting, of delinking from the context to some extent comes into play. We've just done one batch at this point in time. Simultaneously, we've also taken on a batch of an external batch of supervision coaches again. And what's interesting is when we intermingle the two, we are getting great results because they're learning from each other. The aspirations of coaches are the same. Internal coaches want to be able to be an external coach someday. And, you know, it's very evident. So how do we help them get there?
Okay, I'm going to move this away from corporate for a while and get to a more interesting on-the-field cricket, yeah? You heard the panel speak about corporate coaching and so on. What's similar, what's different in sports coaching?
Yeah, so for a sports coach, the time is, I mean, you know, there are no retakes. The results are there immediately for everyone to see. Because every match or every series, there is a result. So the results are so attached to your performance as a coach. And at the end of a year or a series of matches, you're the first one to go if the results are not there. I mean, that's the difference. You don't have too much time. And the metric for your success is not the difference you make in the person's. There are a lot of intangibles about the differences that you make, but there is no measure and the metric for that. But the only metric is, of course, the results, win or a loss. So that's the major difference, I think. But a lot of similarities, of course, but time is very short. You're the first one to go if the results go bad.
Okay, I'm going to get down to now this whole thing about the organization, and some of you were reflecting on the conditions. I think you mentioned something about the conditions in the organization to help clients succeed. What might they be?
So, you know, I think it's all about expectations setting. I've had some strange cases where a coachee tells me that, you know, why don't you put a good word for me to the management? That's the expectation. Or a case, you know, where really the whole point is I would like to coach with someone who's well known. That's the expectation, you know, that it kind of adds to my own this thing. So then, you know, if expectations, there's a mismatch. Also in terms of the pace of results and that is expected, even that, right? So if there's a business unit is in crisis and one thinks that one coaching engagement kind of change, you know, some of that. So I think that becomes an issue. So that's one.
Wanting a silver bullet.
Yeah, sure.
Others?
I just want to say that somewhere there's another thing that tends to happen from organizations. The agenda is given as one. When you actually meet and discuss and delve, you find actually the agenda is something else. And then along the way, the coach is expected to, and I think if you're really true to yourself as a coach, it's the coachee's agenda. And that's when the coach really need, and that's what I try to do, is really bring the organization and the sponsor on board and say there seems to be a mismatch somewhere, or at least a slight addition or a change in direction, and work together if possible.
I wonder what the audience needs to know to be able to provide the scaffolds inside the organization to allow coaching to flourish. What might they do, think about, reflect?
Probably just to add, I think there should be a culture where there is a lot of acceptance for making mistakes. If an organization can create a culture where it's okay to make mistakes or to fail, then there'll be a lot more acceptance to coaching, because then the context for coaching would be to get better. Not that they are wrong or they're not up to the mark, but they want to go higher than what they are already, and there's no pressure of performance. So a culture where there is a lot of acceptance and room for failures or errors, I think that's the culture which will, I think, help the entire ecosystem of coaching, the coaches and the sponsors.
Well, I love the thought, but I have to tell you that I come from a practical organization, and I've learned over time to abandon my esoteric ideas, even though I love them still. The objective of the coachee has to be held independent from the objective of the organization, and both are important. The organization will want results, will want an ROI, will want an ROE. It's a bit of a pain point, but it's true. And there are many coaches in the audience who can actually validate that from TCS. Having said that, the art of bringing the two together, the art of marrying them together and saying, here is why it's important. One is dependent on the other. I don't think we can meet organizational objectives without honoring individual objectives. So if I have a change objective, if I have a change need or an aspiration, it's going to really fuel where my organization is going to go.
And Preeti, that brings me to the elephant in the room, because many coaching assignments, it's almost like both coach and the client are ecstatic about the relationship and the encounters that they're having with each other. And the guy who's paying the bill is asking, "Mujhe kya mila? What's the return on investment? Show me something tangible." What's our response to that question, which is legit?
So
Anyone?
You're talking about the ROI and
Yeah,
the ROE
how do
and
you
the
measure
measurement?
whether it's effective?
I'm going to bring my personal voice in on this and abandon my organizational voice for a bit. My personal voice is, why are we measuring anything? Can we just let people be? Can we coach them? Can we see how they transform over a period of time? Change does not happen immediately. It happens slowly and gradually. It sticks over time. There can be processes put in place. Now, if I wear my organizational hat, I say, I'm sorry, I don't agree. I need to see results. What are you going to deliver on the table? And I would go to Vishal's point on setting expectations. If you set expectations from the beginning and say, this is what we're going to measure, and here is how we're going to measure, and by the end of it, you show a matrix that says, all right, the needle moved, or the needle didn't, or it was gradual or not, is all you can possibly do. I'm not getting into what are the matrices. There are plenty that we can rely on. Revenue is not one of them.
But look at the what's coming up. On one hand, there is someone who's paying and wants a performance or a result. On the other hand, there is the emergent self of the client coming through. There is a sports coaching where you're tested in short nanoseconds of time, setting expectations beyond what's there. So there's so much of contradictions. How do we get the essence of value, even if it's qualitative and not so tangible and not so numerical?
So I would say that the input matters as much as the output. If there is a defined process which is largely followed and not left loose, if stakeholders are involved right from the beginning, if it's clear that, look, these are a couple of behavioral areas, these are the places where you can expect to see change. So, managing all that as part of a process, I think that matters as much as showing that, look, this is a fine thing.
Well, you bring in a new actor in the play, which is the stakeholders. Anita, do you have a comment on stakeholders?
Yeah, so this is actually a favorite topic. And I think it comes from my background of communication. It's so interesting when you ask a coachee for key stakeholders, it's always the boss, the team, and maybe one more. But the reality is, mapping of the stakeholders is one of the key things to show visible difference. And if as a coach, and that's something we try, and in fact my partner is right here, my persona was born, because what tends to happen is, as we said, everybody is measured according to target set, performance, they're all performers. But somewhere we say, this leader is not making an impact. And that's when we got together and said, how do we combine this communication and this counseling and coaching approach and create something where you help an individual discover their own unique differentiator, where they drive from their passion but connected to the organization's need. And then, where's the purpose? And then create a very distinct action plan based on stakeholders. So if we can help each coachee identify those who will motivate them, including themselves and their family.
So fabulous. I'm just conscious of time. I'm conscious of the fact that there's so many of you who've written in with all your questions. I'm not going to be able to flag all of them. Hopefully, some of it will come through and some of it will continue to stay as questions and inquiry. I want to move down to another lane, which is we're all, talking about success of coaching from outside, from within. I want to talk about failure. I'd like to understand, when have you failed? What happened? What did you learn from it? And what would you do different? A real failure. Who would like to go first?
Oh, well, let me go at it. So I had an assignment to coach a first-class team. There are about 27 teams at that point in time, 27 state teams playing in the national championship. So I was there to coach one of the teams, one of the 27 state teams, which were the minnows. They were at the bottom rung. So I was very keyed up. I just finished my stint in the corporate, being in the L&D, and then I went back to coaching. So, so coaching is at, later on realized that there are 3 different levels: at the individual level, at the team level, and at the system or the organizational level or the association level. So I was like really keyed on with the individual and the team level, and did really well in the first year. And there were a lot of results shown at the individual performances, and the team did relatively better than what they've done in the previous years. But the failure was for me at the association level, at the sponsors level, the organization level, if you would like to use that term. Because as a coach, I had to really maintain those kind of relationships, being tactful with the people who sponsored coaching and cricket in the state, which I neglected. I was very assertive, sometimes aggressive about what I thought was needed for the team or the individual, and I neglected that part. So in the second year, I was like on my agenda, and I was saying, this is what the individuals and the team needs, and to hell with what you think. You've done this so many years, you've gone wrong, so you can see the results now, but this is what is. And I failed at that level because what I realized later on, if I have to be effectively making an impact at the individual and the team level, they needed me. They found a good coach in me because I could sense that they wanted me to continue again for the next few years. But the association didn't allow me to do that because I was an ass in their eyes, because I was not colluding with some of the things that they were wanting me to do. So the tact, I would like to use tact rather than diplomacy because I still can't deal with diplomacy. I had to really listen to, so I think what I didn't listen to was that they also wanted to be a part of the success that we had. And I didn't listen for that. And I was like, you guys were not doing it right, and now we are making a difference, you better alter. So now I think the tact would be to really let them into the success, make them feel a part of what was the change that was going on, and then slowly probably they would be on my side. And that's the failure I had. And then because of which, well, I didn't continue as a coach. I put in my papers. But I was there to make a difference to the sportsmen. And I could see that I let down a lot of cricketers there in the team. Because for me, either you get me like this or you don't. And then I put in my papers. But then if I get a chance to redo it, I will give equal importance to all the 3 levels, individual, team, as well as the sponsors or the association.
So thanks for that, Sujit. I think what you're saying is that I learned that there were voices I was paying more attention to and being attentive, and there were voices that I was inattentive to. And I held those voices in some form that I now think are legitimate and need to be included. And therefore, there's a larger system apart from just the relationship that needs attending, attention, awareness, and management. Who'd like to go next?
Well, mine's a diametrically opposite situation, where actually the sponsor was very keen, and there was a merger, and this was a person who joined, come from the old company, and the sponsor was very keen to make it a success. The coachee, on the surface, looked absolutely ready, and I think this is where my enthusiasm and my commitment to coaching and to the individual and respect took precedence over reality. And on the surface, the coachee really looked like he was following and going through with the change, but I'm afraid it didn't work. And it was really lack of, on my part, of seeing coachee's readiness for change. So there was lip service, and I was not able to see below. And what did I learn from it? I think now, when I work with a new coachee each time, that's where I try to dig deeper as to what's in it for me. Why do I really want to go through this? It is a fairly tough process. It's a rigorous process, 8 months sometimes. And as a coach, we also push them a lot to look inside. And I think when you know immediately that when there's lack of interest or slow response, this person's not committed, you know. And I quickly try to pick that up and bring it up either way.
Okay, let's hear the confessions from the corporates.
So at two levels. One is when I'm managing the coaching initiative. There we've spoken of some of the factors already, which is if I've not been able to position the initiative right, or if I've not set the expectations right, I think that's where it typically falters. And I now do try and spend much more time with the stakeholders.
You want to tell us where you failed or what you learned from it?
Yeah, so there were cases where people thought they were here for remedial, and that is because we faltered and we had not, kind of positioned it right, and that's where kind of it failed. So that was really one instance. And as a coach, it's really, so you spoke of, Cindy's definition of setting up the reflective space, and I remember if I faltered from that and got very anxious about problem solving, etc., typically the result is usually very mediocre. That's where failure happens.
Okay.
So,
Priti, not last but not least.
Well, I'll speak to the perception of failure rather than failure itself. So in my organizational experience, in my current organization and others, we have to be ready to let leaders go when you put them through a coaching intervention. And when leaders depart from an organization, it's seen as a potential failure. In my eyes, it's actually a success, because what we're really looking at is saying those who were really not fully committed or had other aspirations, wanted to build their life in a different direction, have now moved on. More often than not, I've noticed people moving on to be entrepreneurs or moving to the social sector. However, building expectations right at the start is extremely important, because the main sponsor believes that you're going to uplift the organization. Actually, the fact is you're going to create awareness and clarify and potentially uplift part of the organization.
Thank you. Just conscious, we've been flying this panel for about 40 minutes now, and now time to land this and bring it down. So a couple of rapid short burst questions. 2 phrases, 3 phrases. We don't need a sentence, right? 2 sentences is not helpful. First, to anyone, managers don't know how to coach, but they can be taught. Yes or no?
Yes? Yes, yes.
Yes to the second part. Managers don't know how to coach, I can't say.
What about you? Yes, no?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yes.
okay. Just making people feel good is not enough for truly effective coaching. What more is needed?
For me, it's
One
digging,
word, 2 words.
yeah, mythos,
Okay? What is
looking
mythos?
at the beliefs of that person.
All right?
Yeah,
Next.
in a mechanism, in an operating system.
Readiness.
Ruthless compassion, being ruthless with compassion as the foundation.
Okay. There are so many things you look for in a coach, right? What's the most critical? One characteristic that you want from a executive coach.
Authenticity,
Empathy.
Ability to stand for something larger than self.
Deep connection,
Okay. In the future, with all this digital stuff and automation and so on, are we going to see an automated coach coming along? Yes, no?
I hope the hell not.
I think there's already one. So
good Lord is my answer.
Huh?
Good
Good
Lord,
God.
no.
Others?
Yes.
I think it's already happening. So I've seen instances of that. So
Yeah. Is there any question that I should be asking you I haven't asked you yet that you think you need to tell the audience?
I think I'd like to talk about coach education. What are you doing about your own learning? Your attention to self.
Okay. Anyone else?
that's the same point, which is the coach's own journey as much as the coach's journey. I think that's an important point.
Is as important as
So I'd just like to share, I went through a 360 obviously when I started my journey as a coach, but recently I went through another 360 and it was a big eye-opener. So I think that's very essential, not just skill development, but constantly relooking at your own self. So I think I would certainly say that's one of the biggest needs. I totally agree with you.
Sujit, final words to you.
I think it's the same thing. There is a responsibility that when you are a coach, you have so many other lives that you are going to be influencing. It's very important. I always believe that as a coach, I think one has to keep looking at oneself and see, because that's the only thing that's in our control. Whatever the challenges and whatever the failures that I go through, it's easy for the conditioning that we have had is point a finger at something external and say because of that, but and because are the two things that comes very naturally to us. Having said that, if I stop and whenever I use but or because of so-and-so it didn't work, start looking at what could I have done differently, what was missing, that if it was there in me, that it would make a huge difference.
So I think in conclusion, what is, if I may summarize, I think there are clearly some challenges and there are clearly opportunities that come from those challenges and but what is not, I think, of debate and dialogue is the fact that we continue to need leaders that lead through their own personal purpose, leaders that are in different contexts and lead organizations, and the work must go on. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your questions. Thank you, panel members, for your participation. And thank you for inviting me to this panel.